All right, everybody, this is Junior here, and welcome back to the runner's desk here. Today we're going to be talking about four main models, core models from Asics. These include the two cushion focus shoes and two of their more stability focused shoes. And just letting you know, I'm going to be having a little bonus fifth model in this lineup as well. If you'd like to see this whole article, I do have this in my blog on the Runnergy website, so feel free to check out in the description. I have a link to that, to the Runnergy website where the blog is. So anyway, let's get on to the 2024 lineup, core models of the Asics, and we're going to start off with the Cumulus 26. This is their $140 price range cushion focused shoe. It's been around for a long time, but the new 26 looks really good. So far I brought it out to a couple customers, and it is fitting really well. It is noticeably lighter and more responsive feeling than the previous model, and comes in multiple widths. So far I do want to note, as of time of this video, I did not see a narrow width. But all the previous models have had narrow widths. So this is their $140 cushion shoe for neutral stability type design, and so far it looks really good. So if you're looking for a lightweight, daily trainer type shoe, not a performance lightweight shoe, but a daily trainer, I think this is a good one to look at. Okay, so moving on to the next one here, we're going to be going to the big brother, sister, sibling of the Cumulus, and that is the Nimbus. Now, don't necessarily just think of this shoe as a $160 beefed up Cumulus. This is quite a different feeling shoe than the Cumulus. Cumulus will feel like a traditional, nice, cushion, lightweight shoe, like kind of how they have felt for many, many years now. The Nimbus, on the other hand, starting from last year's 25, this is kind of a whole different shoe. This is a much beefier shoe, not heavy, but thicker. We're closing in, on that higher, thicker midsole, kind of like a Hoka. Now, obviously, that's the market that their Asics is going towards, but this is going to have a much thicker stack height to it. And with that, in the front of the shoe, it's going to have a more of a drop from the ball of the foot, because we're kind of looking at more in that like 30, high 30 range as far as the thickness compared to the lower 30 millimeter thickness of the Cumulus. So the Nimbus is going to be if you're looking for a maximum cushion feeling shoe, this is the Asics to be looking at. Again, I was a huge fan of last year's 25 when they updated it. I hadn't worn an Asics really continuously since like 2000, before 2004. So this is a really big update. I really liked it. It's solid enough that it's stable, and yet the cushioning is quite. You have to try one on really to just experience. It really is. It's a great shoe. If you're looking for a really maximum thick cushion shoe, you don't mind a rocker in the front, it will have a little bit of a drop off in the front, then the Nimbus 26 might be a really great choice for you to take a look at. Moving on to the more stability focused shoes from Asics. This will start off with the GT-2000 version 12, and this is basically kind of like the Cumulus version of, like the stability version of the Cumulus. It's going to be definitely firmer foam and much more torsionally stiff. This is where Asics is going with a really kind of different direction with their stability focused or medial stability focused shoes. They're really kind of going with a more of a neutral support design, but it's much more torsionally stiff than, say, the cushion focused shoes like the Cumulus and the Nimbus. So there's no too density foam in the shoe. There's not like a softer lining of foam in there, and then on the medial side a stiffer piece of foam to kind of lessen the amount of pronation. they're not kind of doing that. They're kind of like doing some design work and curving out and shaping of the foam on the lateral side compared to the medial side. And then they're making the foam much more firm so that it's more torsionally more resistant to torquing. But that's basically what the GT-2000 is. It's that 140 price range, similar to the Cumulus, but much stiffer, much more resilient to torquing and twisting. It just isn't what it has been for many years. So if you're coming from older Asics GT-2000 models, try this on. I feel like you're going to find it more smooth feeling, especially from heel to toe, because you don't have those different densities of foam in there, but it might feel a little bit different than you're used to. All right, so let's move on to the big dog here, the Asics Kayano. So the Asics started the change with the shoe kind of later last year, but it's still the same shoe right now, Kayano 30. Big departure from the Asics Kayano 29 and previous versions, just like the GT-2000. It got that huge radical change of not having two different densities foams in the shoe. It's one density. Now compared to the GT-2000, it is much thicker than the 2000, so it's kind of like the Nimbus where it's thicker, well, you'll feel a little bit higher off the ground in the Kayano than you will in the GT-2000, but I don't really notice too much of a rocker in the front like the Nimbus. So it's not that much thicker where it has that. The Nimbus is much thicker. The Kayano is a little bit less as thick than the Nimbus, but the Kayano is torsionally much different. It's got a wider base. I'll make sure I put an image of it. A much wider base than, say, even the GT-2000. It's much stiffer, and it's a stiff shoe. I think a lot of people, if you see the shoe, images of it online, I think it's going to look very cushy. The response from people, and I even have a pair myself, is it's not that soft cushy. It's quite firm, which it's supposed to be for that category. So it is supposed to be torsionally stiff and resistant to torquing and stuff. But again, it does not have that two density foam in there where it's softer in some areas, and then as the foot would torque in or pronate in, it has stiffer foam there for that to control that. It's not like that. They kind of blended it into one big piece where it's sculpted in certain ways on the lateral side of the shoe and then straighter, and so it's a different feeling shoe. You definitely want to try it on if you've had previous Asics Kayanus before. It is going to feel, I think, quite different. I think more different from previous Kayanus for some reason than the GT-2000. So maybe even if you had the old Kayanus, you might want to go in. You might want to try the GT-2000 if the new Kayano just feels too radical different, too thick, too high off the ground, and so forth. It doesn't really feel that high off the ground to me, but when you look at it, you're like, oh man, this is kind of thicker feeling. One thing that is kind of unique with the Kayano is that they did maintain the higher heel lift. So the Cumulus, the Nimbus, and even the GT-2000, those all have like an 8mm difference in the back. So the offset is like 8mm higher in the back, which is not what they traditionally have had. They've had like 10mm plus high, heel lifts. What's interesting is that of the four models, the Kayano is the one that has kept the 10mm higher heel lift. I'm guessing that this is the shoe that they want to promote and market towards the medical field, where people have plantar fasciitis or they have Achilles issues. And so having that heel lift in the back might address those issues. The Kayano comes in at 160 compared to 140 like the GT-2000, and so that really is the four models of the Asics core lineup. Now I did mention there was going to be a bonus model here, and let's see, I wasn't able to get a ton of information on this, but there is a secret little model called the GT-4000, and I'll put the image of it for right now. And I do recall it's been around for a little while, but it's not one of those models. I don't recall it being as far back as the 2019s. So I don't think it's that old, but I have heard about it for 5 or 6 years. And it's the GT-4000. Now this is an interesting shoe because it used to be more expensive, I think, than the GT-2000 series, but now it's below the price point of the GT-2000 series at $130 compared to $140. And what's interesting with that is it still looks, at least on paper, it looks more stable, and it also has that old traditional 2-density foam. So it has that softer areas and then the firmer areas. So if you're used to those older Asics GT-2000 or Asics Kayano, the older versions up until about 2022 to 2023, then the GT and be it that you haven't tried the new versions of those, if you have and you just haven't liked them, then you might want to look at the GT-4000. I think you might have a hard time finding a store that carries it, so you may have to just order it, make sure you can return it if you don't like it. I don't know how it fits. I don't know if it fits long, short, wide, narrow. I have no idea. Again, this is not a model that is widely distributed, but it has those old features. It has those dual density midsole in there, and it does look like it's very solid from my few years of experience of looking at these different shoes. Does it look more stable than the GT-2000? I kind of think it does a little bit if you tend to really pronate in. In fact, Asics has it under their severe overpronation category, not like they're just stability, but like they're overpronate if you go to their website. I don't know if it looks much more stable than the new Kayano. The new Kayano is pretty torsionally supportive, stable. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in there because it did catch my eye and it did look very interesting. And the fact that it had the dual density foam in there was kind of very interesting. So anyway, this is Junior here at the Runner's desk. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like the video. Really does help. We're trying to get the subscriptions up here if we can. That really helps us out. And we'll see you on the next video. And as always, keep on moving. Bye-bye.